Hello everyone, and thanks for coming back to the channel. This is the Strider X2 from iFlight. Featuring iFlight branded 1106 6000 kV motors, F3 flight controller with an OSD, 12 amp 4-in-1 ESC, 25 milliwatt all-in-one camera and VTX, 2435 4-blade props, comes with a JST for your battery connection, bottom plate measures 3.21 millimeters, top plate measures 2 millimeters, it does appear to be 122 millimeters. It weighs 87.6 grams, comes with a set of prop guards, extra set of red anodized screws, some grommets, more prop screws, extra motor mounting screws, more random screws, Duralock, and a bunch of stickers. I flew exclusively with the G&B 550 blue and silver 3S batteries. So I think where this fits the market is for an extra durable quad. I have really run the gamut on the crashes with this one. And from that crash, I've picked up the quad probably only about 6 feet away from that tree. And so I smoked it pretty hard. And it was one of those crashes when it happens, you kind of think, oh no, I've just broken something. But we're fine. And that's probably the biggest selling point about this quad, is this carbon fiber is really, really nice. They tout 3K carbon fiber on their website. And I don't doubt that to be true. Let's compare it to an Armaton. This is the Vendetti. I've been meaning to build this for the longest time. Actually, I've had it for about 4 or 5 months. I just haven't gotten around to it. Maybe I will one day. So this is meant for 1306 or 1407 motors and a full-size CCD camera. You know, we've actually gotten past that. That's how long we've got this frame, is we now do, you know, micro cams for the most part. But in this particular case, if we just take a visual inspection of the carbon fiber, the weaves look very, very similar to me. Hopefully that comes through in camera. But that was part of my out-of-box experience, which I know I don't record here. It's just not something that I think is all that useful, that out-of-box experience. If someone watches the first minute of your video and then moves on, they may have a very skewed view of a vehicle. But in this case with the carbon fiber, I'm no carbon fiber expert, but this carbon fiber looks really, really good. Let's compare it to one more frame. I've got I think this is the Fire 120 from Banggood. I haven't built this one up yet either. Trying to get that angle in the camera so you can see them both. And then you get a little bit of especially the view from the side. I think that this just looks denser. Let's compare it to one other frame while we're here. This is the Leader 120. This is a frame I like a lot. And if we look at the carbon fiber, hopefully I can get these close enough and both flatten and focus. So to me, this carbon fiber felt premium, and it gave me a lot of assurances after all my crashes that it was going to be okay. The one thing that I think people are going to not like about this is many people, when I have a camera, even with the Leader 120, people didn't like the fact that that had an all-in-one, so it had a CMOS camera, or it was only 25 milliwatt. That's something I hear oftentimes. I don't have problems with 25 milliwatt. You see my video. I think it's pretty good. You might be flying in environments where you need that extra power. I just don't. So 25 milliwatts to me isn't that big a deal, but it is for some of you, as I mentioned in the RunCam backpack video. But then, of course, this is a Stretch X, so that means the distance from motor to motor is more from front to back than it is from side to side. And the theory behind that is that it's easier to get your nose down and go forward fast, and kind of a racer style, so to speak, of frame design. The nice thing about this one, if you don't like an all-in-one camera, because this one comes in, I last looked at the time of recording here, I think it was $122. So it's a little bit more than we see from some of the quads that we get from Banggood and GearBest and various other places. But I think this is a higher quality in components. I think the ESCs, the flight controller, I think the carbon is top-notch. They use red anodized metal. These things all add weight. I think that's part of the experience, is that you have a vehicle that you have full reliance that it's going to work time and time again. Oh, and I skipped over the RunCam part. Let me grab one. I grabbed a Foxeer instead just because it was on top. Let's see if I can get this lined up just so. But as you can see, it'll slide right in between there. This is actually made for this size. And I don't think you can buy an RTF with this frame and these components with this in it, but they show a lot of pictures of it. So I could be wrong and just not seeing it. But so this camera will fit right in here. And then if we look at the holes on the side, we see we have mounting holes. I don't know why you'd use this one, but maybe for extreme up tilt. But we have two sets of holes here that we can mount a micro CCD camera in. But of course we gain weight, and that's one of the things with this one, is it runs 2.4-inch props, and it's a little bit on the chubby side. You know, it's not exactly light. I do think that they could probably drop a few mil off the carbon and it would still be fine. I can't imagine that it would break if we just shaved off, say, 1 mil, so we had a 2 mil bottom plate, and then maybe a 1.5 mil top plate, and we could probably do that on the side plates as well. Those look like they're 1.5 mil as well. And we could drop some of that weight. We got a fair bit of weight in the metal for the standoffs, but we're also running 1106 motors, so there's a little bit taller. So that's where the weight comes from. But when we're always looking at performance, or if you want to look at the performance side, this does fly like a heavier vehicle. It requires a little bit of a bigger battery. That's why I used a 550. Oftentimes I go down to a 450 to fly most of my machines like this. But this one needed more juice, partly because of the weight, partly because of 1106 motors. I also think that I kind of wonder if they had stretched it out just a little bit so we could have run the Rotor X props. I did try them on. The Rotor X props will work in the back, the 2535s, but they won't work in the front. They clip on this camera pod. If you got desperate, you could take a Dremel out with safety, you know, cover, don't breathe any of that carbon in, and you could carve this just a little niche out, and it would probably clear because it's real close, but it does clip this camera pod on both sides. And speaking of these props, I think I've mentioned once before, I'm not a huge fan of these props. I don't know if these are the Pro versions, the Racer Star versions, or what, you know, whoever makes these props, but I bought a baggie of them quite a while ago. I think it was a bag of 20. And as you can see here, I've gone through all the red ones they shipped with. This did not ship with any extra props, and I've had to go to those blue ones. And they break at the hub all the time. This one isn't full off, but you can see it's starting to snap there on the edge. Another one broken at the hub. Broken at the hub. Now, I didn't collect these. These all came off of this vehicle. And there's another one broken at the hub. Yeah, I think that does it. So I think we might need some different materials with these props to make them more durable. Or we might need to have a round hub, maybe. Maybe that would help to firm up this area to where it's less frangible. But if your props aren't, you know, in really good shape, say you've bent them a few and you have a small crack that you maybe didn't see, if you take off and do a punch out with this thing, it will blow a prop right off. And I actually had that happen, and thankfully I heard it and immediately let off the throttle so as not to burn out a motor, because that's the risk. I mean, at least in my mind, that's the risk. Is these 1106s have so much power that they'll just blow they'll blow a single blade right off, as they did once on me. I do think that all the manufacturers, this isn't iFlight specific, and oh, by the way, they carved their name right into the frame. It's kind of a nice touch. I think they do need to just stop with the JST. You know, I've been a little bit of an advocate for the JST, mainly because I'm old and I've been crimping my own JST connectors for a while, and I hear time and time again, well, at least when I was really watching a lot of quadcopter videos where people were talking about getting extra juice by simply putting an XT30 on the end, and that's not necessarily true. It's going to depend upon the gauge of your wire and the gauge of the wire on the battery as well, so that's not a quick fix. But I do think in all cases from manufacturers they should just skip the JST and have an XT30. I'm starting to wonder if it's a manufacturing cost, if they can buy a bunch of these at a lower cost, you know, a fully assembled lead, than they can with the XT30. I just don't know. Maybe machines put these together really fast, and we just don't have XT30 machines putting together battery leads. I have no idea, but I do think it's time, even though I think JSTs are okay, that we just go to XT30, because the battery manufacturers are starting to come around to where we have a lot more micro batteries for this category of flight, and most of the time they're putting XT30s, so I think it's time for all the manufacturers to do it. That's not iFlight specific, that's just my thoughts across the board, that I wish all the vendors would do that. The strain release you see for the battery lead, I added that. That's not something that was done, and I added that after having a few crashes. I was like, boy, I don't want to damage this. And this is almost like you get one of those presents at Christmas where you think is so special you're worried about breaking it. But, you know, you can't have fun flying unless you're breaking stuff, it seems like. But in this case, I broke nothing other than props, and I'm very happy about that. I was so happy with the amount of abuse that this machine took that I went to iFlight's website, which I hadn't really checked out before. They're kind of an under-the-radar manufacturer, at least in my opinion. I mean, if you've heard of them, leave a comment below. If you've had experiences with their motors, with any of their components, leave a comment down below. I'm very interested, but I bought 2 frames and they are en route, and I've got a 4-inch frame and I think a 3-inch frame on the way, just because I thought the price was very reasonable. I think that 4-inch frame was only like 28 bucks, and I think the carbon fiber is top quality, so I went ahead and made that investment, because my 4-incher I'm getting irritated with. It's a pod, and every time I crash the thing, the pod explodes, and then I have to do a whole bunch of work. So I'm going to go to a more traditional design. I like flying this. This is not a screamer. You're not going to set any land speed records with this, but it's a solid unit. It does perform well. You're going to need some good quality batteries, though. If you've got some low C or low C rated batteries, they're probably not going to fly very long, or you're going to have to listen to the buzzer all the time, and then you're going to end up puffing your batteries too. You might be wondering about this. I just don't like things flopping around. I think I saw a video a long time ago where I think it's back in the old F1 days where our flight controllers just didn't have the horsepower. That somebody was showing the difference in a tune when you have things that are loose on the vehicle versus if everything's very tidy and neat. And so that's sometimes I do this on vehicles because I don't want it flopping around causing any sort of vibration or anything. You don't necessarily need to do that. I did try to use my heat gun and bend it back just ever so slightly as well, kind of like what I did with this antenna. It doesn't come with a receiver, so you need to furnish your own, but other than that, it's ready to fly. It's tuned pretty well. All I did was have to put my rates in, and I did have to up my rates because it didn't quite fly like I wanted it to, and of course I don't fly a lot of Stretch X frames. I think this is my second, maybe my third, so not a lot. So my rates don't necessarily work like the way I want them to work for Stretch X, and that's not a big deal, you know. You just change a couple numbers. You've got the OSD right there. You can do it from your radio, and you're all fine, set to go. It did come also with, I mentioned in the intro how it came with the black Duralock. It's over here. This stuff isn't free or cheap, and it is 3M branded at least. This is the thicker stuff. I like to use the low profile, but this stuff will really make your battery stick on, but it adds a fair bit of weight. You know, if you you only need a square like that for one of our micro batteries. I went ahead and pulled off what was on here. It did come with some of this already stuck to it. I pulled it off and went with what I have on my batteries, just because otherwise I'd have to take it all off my batteries and put this stuff on. And you can see, I'm not a fan of these straps either, by the way. It's fairly worn. You know, some of the knobbies are missing, some are laying over, some aren't quite straight, but I can still stick a battery on there just fine. And this is one of the advantages. I typically put my batteries on this way. So you stick the battery on, and then you can fuss with your cables, getting them how you want them, and then get your battery strap, especially when you have a strap like this. I never put this through here like that. I have yet to figure out a method to where you could thread this through and actually get this thing tight. What I end up doing all the time is squeezing this big part down and then kind of taking my thumb and creating pressure and rotating it around, because I want that battery, and I have my wires down in there too, I want that battery to be snug and not moving around. So that's one of the reasons I started using Duralock, and I continue to use Duralock. As far as the batteries, these battery straps go, they aren't necessarily great by any stretch. I would recommend, again, to manufacturers, if you want to make a premium product or you want to add some value, include a traditional battery strap with the buckle. Quite a while back, I bought a batch of 25 of these battery straps from my RC Mart. They're RCX branded, obviously. These are the just about the right length where you can get larger 650s or even 4-cell batteries around this and around your frame, and as well as smaller batteries. My one niggle against these straps is that they're plastic on the end, and I just kind of prefer, for the case of bulk and to the ability to get nice and snug, that this be metal. If you guys know of someone that makes, I think this is a 5 mil, 5 mil. If you guys know of a 12 mil battery strap that comes with, that's short, I don't want the super long ones. These are centimeters down here. You can get an idea of the length. That comes with a metal buckle, I'm all ears. I'd buy a bunch of those, because I like to use battery straps instead of these, and I would prefer it have a metal buckle on the end. But that's just me. That's an aside. I mentioned this earlier, but I'll say it one last time. I think this is a good quality product. I think this series of components does fly well. You're going to need a nice, probably 500, 550, or maybe even more, depending upon how you fly battery, because these 1106 motors will eat through batteries. But I think you're going to have a lot of flights without much trouble with this unit. I've had this for several weeks now. If you follow my Instagram, you probably saw a picture of it the night it came through, so you can check me on how long I've had it. But generally, I fly it over lunch, get about 7 packs in, and then I fly it in the evening. Usually get somewhere between 4 to 10 packs. And I've been doing that most days with this particular vehicle, and I've crashed it a bunch. You saw that major crash I had. Not a problem. I think this will going to be reliable over the long haul. I've beat it up. I think the one thing is the props. But unfortunately, I don't think there are a lot of options for 2.4-inch props. So get a bunch of them and have fun. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please leave those in the section down below. I'll put a link to this product from the iFlight's website. This was sent to me as a review unit. You can click that link if you want to check this out for yourself. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.